here, before we do the transplanting, there is also the other aspect of the land preparation. You must be able to, to prepare your land very well, so that you can be able to establish your crop, and your crop can thrive. And here, when we are looking about land preparation, even before land preparation, we are looking about the history of that land. History of the land is very important, so that you're able to know which other crop has been planted before, before you plant your kale crop. Because if maybe what was planted before is like cabbage, or maybe other crop that are of the brassica family, it will not be advisable for you to plant the kale, because you may find some of the diseases even in the soil, like root rot, may be there and may still attack your kale crop. And therefore, it is very important for you to consider the history of that land. And also, the history of that land will be able to tell you the prevalent pests that are there, the diseases that are there, so that you are able to do your kale crop farming from an informed decision. And therefore, history of the land cannot be overemphasized as you are going to plan to plant your kale crop. And then, apart from the history of the land, we are going to look at the soil testing. Soil testing is very important, because in many instances you find farmers usually apply the fertilizers they use traditionally, that have been used traditionally. For instance, if it's DAP, you find it is the default fertilizer for planting, which should not be the case. The advice that we usually give farmers is, the land where you want to plant, it is important for you to get the services of soil testing technicians, who are going to come. They take samples, they take to their labs, they test that soil. And once they test that soil, they are going to test for, among other things, they are going to test for the nutrition aspect of the soil. And they are going to know which nutrient is deficient in your soil, whether it is phosphorus, nitrogen, or potassium, or even a micronutrient, which is deficient. And they are going to advise you which fertilizer you are going to use, depending on what is deficient in your soil. They are also going to advise you, per an acre of land, how much of that fertilizer are you going to use. And therefore, soil testing is very important, as you are going to look at the issue of land preparation. The other aspect we are going to look is the fertility of that land, because of course when you are growing the kale crop, you have to plant in a fertile soil. If you don't plant in a fertile soil, it means what you are looking for, the profitability and a good kale quality vegetables, you are not going to get. And therefore, you have to look at the quality, the fertility of that land. And how do you determine the fertility of that land? It will depend, it will be determined by, among other things, one can be soil testing that I have just mentioned, where they are going to look at the organic matter content of that soil. If the organic matter content is too low, then definitely you know that soil is not fertile. And also the way the soil looks, a fertile soil looks a bit loose, and it may even contain earthworms and some other microorganisms in the soil. But you may find some soil that is quite hard, and a hard soil, it depicts that that soil doesn't have aeration, or good aeration, and hence that soil may not be fertile. But on a general scale, what we usually advise, if maybe you have a history of that land, because that history of the land will also tell you about the fertility of that land. And you may also look at the other crop that are growing the neighboring farms, and it will tell you if they are growing very well. Then it will tell you that even the land where you are growing, the soil is fertile, because a fertile land will be able to tell even from the crop that are growing, even the weeds that are growing that land. Because when the soil is the soil is infertile, you may find even the weeds that grow in that farm may grow, you know, weakly. They may grow in a very weak way, and which will tell you that the land there is not fertile. Irrespective of the land that you have chosen, so that you can grow the kale crop, you can do a few things to be able to improve the aspect of the fertility aspect of that soil. And one is through the use of manure, very well decomposed manure. It may be farmyard manure, or maybe it may be compost manure. Compost manure is from plant sources. Farmyard manure is from animal sources. But what you advise is the manure should be well decomposed so that it can be able to give benefit to the soil. Because you find there are some farmers who usually take dried manure. Dried manure is just manure that maybe you have removed from the cow shed or the goat shed, and then you put it in the sun to dry. That is dried manure, but not decomposed manure. Decomposed manure is the manure that you put, you know, in a place, and then you cover it with a black polythene, so that the decomposition can take place through the energy from the sun. You know, the heat from the sun decomposes that manure. So until that manure becomes like soil. So that is a very well decomposed manure. When you mix with the nursery, I mean with the soil, the soil in the land, then it's going to mix very well. And therefore, that is a very key aspect that you are going to look at. And in an acre of land, you can be able to apply, if you have 5 tons of manure, you can apply, because actually kale crop is a heavy feeder. It feeds a lot, and so that it can be able to grow big leaves, because leaves are the ones that are sold. Then you need to have good manuring. So if you have 5 tons, or even if you have 3 tons, you can be able to apply. I know in some areas manure may be limiting and it may be expensive, but we are looking at a situation where whatever manure you have, so long as it's very well decomposed, you can be able to apply it in the land, so that you can be able to improve the fertility of that soil. Because actually manure, what it does, it improves the structure of that soil. If maybe the soil was very hard, it will be a bit loose, so the structure will change. It will also improve what we call the water retention. It's able to retain the water. The organic matter composition of that soil will also improve, and also the aeration, such that when the roots are growing, they will be very well aerated. The microorganisms that assist the soil in, you know, in the functions in the soil, they are also going to thrive very well, because there will be enough air in the soil. So actually manure application is very important.